Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reviewing the Canon EF-S 55 to 250mm IS STM lens. I'll go over the specs, show you some photographs that I took with the lens, then I'll give you my pros and cons, and finally I'll end with my recommendations. This video is not sponsored. I personally purchased this lens on Amazon refurbished for $195. I was looking for a telephoto lens that was lightweight and inexpensive. The EF-S 55 to 250mm lens is designed specifically for Canon APS-C or crop sensor cameras. As you guys know, I shoot a lot of wildlife photography on my Canon 80D, which is what I paired this lens with for the review. This is the latest version of this lens, which adds a new CPU and STM for faster autofocus. It also comes with IS, image stabilization, which Canon says will stabilize up to 3.5 equivalent stops of shake correction. In my experience, they're being a little too generous with that claim, but most lens manufacturers are. The lens has a focal length of 55 to 250mm. On a crop sensor, that's 88 to 400mm equivalent. The aperture range is f4 to 5.6, closing down as you zoom into the 250mm mark. The aperture has 7 blades which produce decent bokeh. f4 to 5.6 equates to f6.4 to 9 on a crop sensor camera. It takes some work to get a shallow depth of field with a human-sized subject. If you're shooting outside in decent light and have the room, it's doable, but it's much easier with smaller subjects like flowers, dogs, cats, and insects. You'll need to get as close to your subject as you can to blur the background. I wouldn't recommend birding or wildlife photography with this lens because there isn't enough zoom range. I also noticed this lens doesn't focus as fast as some of my other Canon lenses. Sometimes it goes in and out searching before it can lock on focus. But when it does, this lens is very sharp. The sharpness and image quality make it a great value. Okay, so let's go over my pros and cons. We'll start with the pros. Number one, it's sharp. The image is really sharp all the way through the aperture range and the focal length, which is kind of unusual because on most lenses, when you open the aperture all the way up, it's a little softer. It doesn't get sharp until you start closing down. The second pro is that it's lightweight. The third pro is that it has a quiet focusing motor. And the last pro is that it's a great value for the price that I paid. On the con side, number one has to be the focus searching. It'll lock on to something when you're focusing, but I noticed when I was trying to shoot some birds and I was focusing on their heads, I used single point focusing in the optical viewfinder, and I noticed that at 250mm, it would search in and out and around trying to find the bird's head. It'll get there, just not always on the first try. My second con is that it's an odd focal range for crop sensor cameras. So here's my final thoughts. This is a great kit lens upgrade, especially if you're upgrading from the 18 to 135. It's sharper than that lens, but you do lose on the wide end. Still, you do get more detail and contrast in your images without breaking the bank. The focal length for a crop sensor camera is kind of odd because you have to have a decent amount of room between you and your subject to get everything in frame. At the end of the zoom, I was always needing more reach than it could offer. I would not recommend this lens for portraits or wildlife photography, but if you're shooting your pets or flowers or insects or even going on vacation to the zoo or the beach, you can get some really nice detailed images with this lens. So is this lens Todd approved? Yes, but with some caveats. Don't pay over $200 for this lens. Pick it up used or refurbished. I got mine for $195 on Amazon. And like I said earlier, I don't recommend it for portraits or wildlife. Spend the extra money and get you an EF lens that you can take with you when and if you decide to upgrade to full frame. Well, that's the end of today's video. If you have any questions about this lens, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer you. You can also catch me on Instagram here. I tag all of my photos with the lens I shot them with. Until next time, I am Todd Norris. Peace